want to start this off with Justin Amash to show the fact that although this conflict is being fought abroad, it does not mean it's not affecting the hearts at home. Justin Amash is a congressman and he's a Palestinian American. He says, I was really worried about this. With great sadness, I have now confirmed that several of my relatives were killed in the St. Porphyus Orthodox Church in Gaza, where they had been sheltering, where part of the complex was destroyed as the result of an Israeli airstrike. Give rest, O Lord, to their souls, and may their memory be eternal. The Palestinian Christian community has endured so much. Our family is hurting badly. May God watch over all Christians in Gaza and all Israelis and Palestinians who are suffering, whatever their religion or creed. And it's a beautiful sentiment, and it's the right mindset to have. It does not matter what religion or creed you hail from. All that matters is that you are an innocent person that is taken care of and hopefully not killed in wartime. What do we see now again from Justin Amash? He says, in this video provided to me from a relative on the site, you can see the destruction of the St. Porphyus Orthodox Church in Gaza. The ancient sanctuary remains standing, but the church annexed, which includes offices and meeting spaces for the Christian community, collapsed. I'm going to go ahead and play this, and then we'll jump into some more stuff from Justin. After you saw the destruction, and this is where two of his family members died, well, the thing is, it is only where two of them died. Multiple people within Justin Amash's family had died, including a baby named George, who was pulled from the rubble in the St. Porphyus Orthodox Church in Gaza. The beautiful baby committed no crimes, harmed no person. May his memory be eternal. And I will not be showing this photo because I'm honestly just sick of looking at pictures of dead kids. And I will not be showing that here, so if you would like to go look at it, link in the description for everything that I use will be down below. You can go ahead and check that out. The thing that is bugging me so much about this is, once again, we have pictures of dead children, innocent people, and the IDF in Israel will act like it's no big deal because they've been talking about for years, and you can go look this up. So many people within Israel consider the people of Palestine and the Muslim community to be subhuman dogs. I don't know why. It's just the conditioning of their upbringing. You can talk to Jews in America, Jews across the world, and many of them do not believe this. They do not feel this way about other people, but there are some people within Israel that have been conditioned within this mindset, and it's absolutely fucking abhorrent. And with that abhorrent mindset comes with your justification of bombing things like Christian churches that will lead to the deaths of innocent babies. Palestine's population is 50% children, 40% under the age of 16, 50% under the age of 18. And what that means is you are willing to push collective punishment, which is a war crime under the laws of the international community, on people who had no ability to vote Hamas into power when the democratic election was established. So what do we see here? We see Justin Amash. My family and I would like to express our heartfelt appreciation for the many kind and gracious messages of condolence to our beloved cousins in Gaza. Please remember the thousands upon thousands of innocent civilians in unbearable circumstances who simply want a life of peace. So many of the people suffering are just children. They don't deserve violence and death. That's absolutely true, and this is why the nature of this needs to be called to a ceasefire. But the one thing I am so genuinely concerned about is the fact that the West will never understand that this is a holy war in the eyes of the people who are fighting it, and because of that, we may never see a ceasefire. And it genuinely, it really, really upsets me to think about the fact of what this will lead to, because this will only possibly lead to the fact of the entire Muslim world being activated, which will throw us into the death throes of World War III, considering we already have conflict with Russia and Ukraine and the United States and NATO. We already have the conflict escalating between China and Taiwan. We have the conflict now between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and now we have the conflict ginning up between Palestine and Israel, and with it the possibility to activate the entirety of the Muslim world. We see the Taliban from Afghanistan saying they will gladly march on Jerusalem given safe passage. We see Hezbollah openly supporting Hamas. We see Iran making comments of support towards Hamas. And with it, we see that, as I've already stated, the activation of the Muslim world against Israel is the one thing that Israel does not need, but their continued persecution of the Palestinian people will only lead to just that. So we're going to be jumping into Face the Nation, and they're starting to use a term called axis of evil, and they're throwing it all the way back to the rhetoric of World War II. And here's the thing. We see there's a new axis of evil in the world. China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran. Leader Mitch McConnell says, and we need to stand up to this axis of evil, not try to do business with them. the mindset within the foreign policy establishment of the war hawks like Mitch McConnell, who I pray the Grim Reaper comes for any day with the claw machine of life. But sadly, he just keeps getting Dianne Feinstein over and over again. The thing that I fucking can't stand about Mitch McConnell, one, is how he talks. I genuinely despise listening to this guy. I feel like I'm falling asleep every single time I have to listen to him talk. But the fact is that he will say, China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran are the new axis of evil. These countries have nothing in common except for the fact that they are not involved with the U.S. world empire. That's basically it. They're not aligned on religion. They're not aligned on the process of how to orient themselves economically. But no, that doesn't matter. They're the new axis of evil, and we have to make sure that we take them down. Let's go ahead and jump into this clip of Mitch McConnell, once again throwing the rhetoric of World War II into the fray, because they've run out of propaganda that they consistently can throw at people's faces. So what are they doing? They're using something that they know worked so long ago and that so many people no longer have the memory of, because the people who suffered during the times of World War II are sadly no longer with us. Let's go ahead and jump into this clip of Mitch McConnell.
President Biden said he's going to hold Iran accountable. What do you think that means?
I think the proof will be, what are we going to do to hold them accountable? And it's got to be credible. You can't, on the one hand, be negotiating with Iran on some kind of nuclear deal that you know they won't keep, and then turn around and declare that you're going to get tougher with Iran. I think, number one, quit talking to the Iranians about any kind of nuclear deal. Number two, don't give them the $6 billion. And number three, back up the Israelis in every conceivable way after this attack by Iran-sponsored Hamas.
You oppose all diplomacy with Iran.
It's not a question of whether you ever talk to them or not, but it's a question of what do you do? What do you do? And clearly, the nuclear deal that the Obama administration agreed to and that the Biden administration tried to connect is not the way to go. There's an axis of evil in the world: China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran. And we need to stand up to the axis of evil, not try to do business with them.
And here we see Mitch McConnell using the axis of evil term going all the way back to the rhetoric of World War II, and with it, because they know that is the last justifiable war that they have actually fought. And with it, we now see that with the Jewish people being the people in focus who are the target within this war, they are now going to invoke World War II to try and gin people up into a similar mindset. Alrighty, here's the deal. I hate Mitch McConnell. The fact that I have to listen to him makes me achieve the understanding of what it means to be closer to a comatose state than I did beforehand, and I genuinely despise it. I'm sorry that I made you listen to it. Let's go ahead and jump into Breonna Joy Gray. Someone's trying to get me fired from the Hill by leaking to the Daily Beast. I've been incredibly proud of my coverage of Israel-Palestine on the Hill, and I'm glad to have an opportunity to represent a view that is too frequently erased from corporate news. Also, all my quotes in this article are based. Go ahead, check out the article if you're willing. Link in the description, as you can go see. The thing is, Breonna Joy Gray, I disagree with her on so much it's unbelievable. She's a progressive socialist type. I think she's wrong about basically everything, but she's spot on when it comes to the nature of war in Israel and Palestine. She's really good at understanding these types of conflict, and with it, I will go ahead and gladly talk about the fact that she's good where she is, and then criticize her where I believe she's wrong. But the one thing that we cannot have is people with disparate opinions being removed from news outlets solely based on the fact that they don't toe the establishment line. We've seen it happen with so many people, and it's about time we put our fucking foot in the ground and say, no, this will not stand. We will not support your organization if you will continue to do such things. Breonna Joy Gray being someone who would succeed going independent if she actually had to and was forced out on her own, or was to be able to be picked up by another news outlet. I could genuinely see this happening. As I've said, progressive socialist type, but even then, it doesn't matter if you're on the side of the establishment. If you don't toe the narrative, they will sit there and they will attack you no matter what. And the thing that I really want to cover, just before I move on, I just thought about this. In that article, they talk about the fact of how, well, the people are worried that talking to lawmakers in Washington is going to be harder, and it's going to make their job a lot harder because it's going to be more difficult to interact with these people if they're challenging their rhetoric. It's like, isn't that your job? You're a fucking journalist. But I don't want to make sure that I'm going against the establishment ethos. It's like, then why the fuck are you even in journalism? What is your point except being a propagandist and a mouthpiece for the regime if you are not willing to challenge the established order? On to Glenn Greenwald and his response to this. The system and climate of censorship and cancellation built, cultivated, and championed over the last 7 years by establishment media and their allies in government is now being weaponized against Israel critics, urging their firing, deplatforming, and other punishments. And well, this is in response to Brianna Joy Gray and the fact that people are now targeting her position at the Hill solely because she doesn't toe the establishment line when it comes to Israel. There's an obvious attempt to rejuvenate and reimpose the repressive post-9/11 climate in the U.S. Netanyahu is reciting Bush and From's axis of evil. The IDF says either you stand with Israel or with the terrorists. Barry Weiss held up Condoleezza Rice as the model we should follow. Barry Weiss falling so far from grace with this recent conflict, and Glenn Greenwald, a Jewish journalist, being someone who is open about the nature of criticizing Israel because he understands that to criticize Israel is not to be against the Jewish people. Moving on to Nikki Haley, someone who does not understand this mindset at all. She says Iran is the junior partner of the communists, China, and Vladimir Putin's Russia. They are all in the same goal, to threaten U.S. and our allies and to destroy us. The idea that we have to actively fight wars abroad consistently because the neoconservative warhawk establishment class, like Nikki Haley, John Bolton, Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell, and so many others that are willing to go send your children to go die in a war abroad 7,000 miles away from your border, well, we see that the rhetoric hasn't changed, and now Nikki Haley, much like all of the neocons, are jumping on the same train. The thought process of the axis of evil. They've all gotten their firmware update, and with it, they're only going to push the same standard, which is going to be the establishment line. She says Iran is the junior partner to the Communist Chinese Party and Vladimir Putin's Russia. Well, what does that mean? She means that all of these people are tied together and that fighting a war against one is truly fighting a war against the other. And we see that the conservative establishment has been propagandized into a state of thinking China is this massive dragon that must be feared when realistically it's a dragon made out of a house of cards. And it is nothing more than a paper dragon that will go up in flames as soon as the first domino starts tipping on their economy. If you think our economy is bad, China is a ghost economy to the degree that is almost unfathomable when compared to that of the US dollar. They just actually make shit in compared to the United States, where we do not produce anything anymore. Nikki Haley with this clip says, Iran said the easiest way to come into America is through the southern border. People are coming through. They're not being vetted. We can't wait for another 9/11. So I wanted to give credit to Nikki Haley on the fact that she's at least right on the southern border. We do need to close up the southern border. But the reason she's saying so is because we have to be aware of Islamic extremism, and the fact is we could experience another 9/11. And I'm not saying we're not even letting in terrorists through the border. It's very possible that's happening. I'm saying the reason behind it is solely so they can propagandize you into the mindset of another war. Nikki Haley wasn't this insane, massive champion for the wall that was to be built between the United States and Mexico border. No. That wasn't some major talking point of hers. It was always the fact of worrying about Iran, worrying about China, because she's nothing more than a neoconservative warhawk. And we will play this clip from Nikki Haley. Let's go ahead and run through it.
I have been concerned. I have been terribly worried about the fact that Iran has said the easiest way to get into America is through the southern border.
So she says the easiest way to get into America is through the southern border. Well, here's the deal. Every single country that knows anything about anything right now knows the easiest way to get into America is through the southern border. So that's basically a null and void statement.
We have an open border. People are coming through. They're not being vetted. We don't need to wait for another 9/11. You also look at the fact that, Kristen, America is incredibly distracted and incredibly divided. And when America's distracted, the world is less safe. And look at what happened to Israel. They waited for them to be distracted. And that's when your enemies move in.
So this mindset is so intriguing because what does she say? Well, when America's distracted, the world is in danger. Meaning her mindset is that America is the world's police and we should continue to operate as the world empire. Another reason why I have zero respect.
America needs to wake up. We need to put this negativity and division behind us, and we need to focus on national security for ourselves and for our friends. And
when she says we need to focus up, put this negativity behind us, what she means is you need to put down your burdens that you hold now with the people you disagree with currently that are trying to propagandize your children, and we need to focus up so we can go support this war. I genuinely cannot stand this woman, and we're going to go ahead and jump into another clip where here we see U.S. presidential candidate Nikki Haley says to an American voter, I will go ahead and push for the idea of wiping Iran off the map when she is asked, what will you do about Iran if you become the president? Her response is abhorrent, and this is exactly why this woman cannot sit in the throne of power.
What would you do with Iran if you're president? What would you do?
You know, I mean, it's what I said to Netanyahu: finish them, finish them. This is enough. They're only going to try and kill us and kill Israelis. We've got to put an end to this.
So, what will you do as a response to Iran? Finish them. This is just like Lindsey Graham openly coming out when he was having an interview with one of the correspondents on CNN, who gladly called him out for this. And I will give her this: she did a fantastic job about it because she realized how outright insane what he was saying was. He goes out and states, well, even if Iran isn't directly involved, we should be bombing Iranian oil depots and refineries. And she pauses and she kind of stutters and she's like, I'm sorry, are you saying that even if there is no corollary proof that Iran is funding Hamas, we should be bombing Iranian oil depots? He looks dead in the camera and says, yes. This is the mindset of these people. They're genuinely fucking insane. Now on to Anthony Blinken and this piece of shit. What we see is, in this moment where evil, hatred, and madness here have once taken so many innocent lives, we must stand together, resolved to confront what is the worst of humanity and what is the best. Hamas and Putin represent different threats, but they both want to completely annihilate a neighboring democracy. So, here's the deal. What we see in Ukraine is not a democracy. Ukraine removing opposition parties, making sure they are no longer holding elections, persecuting journalists, attacking religious figures that disagree with the standards of what are being pushed by the Ukrainian government. The fact that we're correlating this fact of, well, we have to protect democracy, which is just another rhetorical ploy that they use to say, well, we have to protect the world empire, because when they say we have to protect democracy, what they mean is we have to extend our hegemony. Onto this from Palestinian Online, and we see the aftermath caused by a missile manufactured by an American company named Woodward, which was launched in Gaza. And here we see the missile itself, and we can see the location of where it was produced. When you scan the barcode, you can actually find the information for where these things are created and who funds this production if you just go back and you look at the contracts of who end up signing these contracts with Woodward. So, U.S. missiles are being sent abroad to go bomb Palestinian children, and that is going to be something that will continue to happen. Because as I've already reported in one of my other Israel-Palestine videos, we saw that Boeing had recently sent 1,000 missiles to Israel, and with that, we know that these are just going to be used either with the Iron Dome or used to be dropped on Palestine, as I've stated numerous times and will continue to state, a land that is so densely populated that it is more dense than that of Manhattan or India. If you think you could drop an explosive in either of those areas without hitting civilians, you are insane. Now, we're going to go ahead and jump into antiwar.com, and that's how we're going to go ahead and finish this off. Do not buy any of the bullshit that is getting pushed by the propagandists that are trying to gin you up into the mindset that is nothing more than seeing your ideological opposition as an enemy that must be slain through warfare and conquest, because it will make you no better than your enemies, and in the end, it will make you the enemies of the free people of the world, as the US and the world empire is already seen by many. Let's go ahead and jump into antiwar.com. From David DeCamp on antiwar.com, Blinken rejects idea of Gaza ceasefire despite massive child casualties. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Sunday rejected the idea of U.S. calling for a ceasefire in Gaza when confronted with the massive number of child casualties in Israel's onslaught. UNICEF says 1,524 children have been killed in the Gaza Strip during these bombings. Why isn't the U.S. calling for at least a temporary ceasefire? Margaret Brennan, the host of CBS News Face the Nation, asked Blinken. And as we can see, it does not matter if you are a citizen of Palestine who is a Christian, who is related to an American congressman like Justin Amash's family members who were sadly just killed in Israel's bombardment. And what do we see? They consistently sidestep it. Blinken won't even mention it. Hell, I don't even think he knows, nor of the fact that he fucking cares. Blinken claimed that the death of children on both sides hits him right in the heart, but did not criticize Israel's vicious bombing campaign. He pointed to U.S. efforts to get Israel to allow aid trucks to enter Gaza through Egypt, and Brennan then asked why the U.S. isn't pushing for at least a temporary ceasefire. Israel has to do everything it can to make sure this doesn't happen again, Blinken said, referring to the October 7th Hamas attack. Freezing things in place where they are now would allow Hamas to remain where it is and to repeat what it has done in some time in the future. No country could accept that, Blinken said. Blinken made a similar argument earlier this year when rejecting the idea of a ceasefire in Ukraine ahead of the Ukrainian counteroffensive, saying a pause in the fighting would only benefit Russia. Now it's clear Ukraine's counteroffensive has failed months after the brutal fighting and heavy Ukrainian casualties have taken their toll. During the interview with Brennan, Blinken also claimed it was Hamas's fault that American citizens in Gaza could not leave, despite the fact that the enclave is under an Israeli blockade and Egypt has not been letting people enter its territory from the border crossing with Gaza, which the Rafah crossing already being bombed by Israel in previous days. What we see is we've had people come to Rafah, the crossing with Egypt, and to date, at least Hamas has blocked them from leaving, showing once again its total disregard for civilians of any kind who are stuck in Gaza, Blinken said. So really the ball is in Hamas's court in terms of letting people who want to leave, civilians from third countries, including Americans, get out of Gaza. Despite Blinken's claim, reports in recent days have said dual citizens were told to go to the Rafah border crossing, but were not allowed into Egypt. According to a report from NBC News, there are up to 600 Americans stuck in Gaza, and they say that they are not receiving help from the U.S. to get out. America's not helping us. Biden's not helping us. The embassy is not helping us. Amir Koud, a Palestinian American at the Rafah crossing, told NBC. And don't expect them to help anyone because they have no desire to see any innocent civilians saved. All they desire is to see the metrics of the world empire expand. It does not matter how many innocent people have to die to see that standard established. And we can see this perfectly with how many people have been ground into the dirt in conflict in Ukraine, and with it, my prayers are with everyone that will be dying in this conflict because I know that it will not be slowing down anytime soon. The only slowdown we will be seeing in any conflict soon will be that of what is going on with Ukraine and Russia, solely based on the fact that winter is arising and the Ukrainian and Russian winters are beyond brutal and will bring the war to a stalemate because they will have no capacity to actually fight through the blizzards that they will be suffering through. What we see here, we have antiwar.com, and I'm going to finish it off here. Antiwar.com is a fantastic asset for going through and finding out different pieces of information about foreign policy, U.S. military expansion, so many different things happening in different countries, whether it's the nature of our policy, whether it's the process of what's going on with different conflicts in different regions. Here we see we have what's going on the front line: Ukraine, Gaza, Russia, Armenia and Azerbaijan, Europe, Israel, Palestine, Africa, Afghanistan, Asia Pacific, Lebanon, Iraq, the war at home in America, Mexico, Latin America. I cannot recommend antiwar.com enough. David DeCamp, one of the fantastic writers at antiwar.com who wrote that piece that we just went through. Go follow everyone at antiwar.com. They're unbelievable. Thank you for watching if you got this far. Thumbs up if you liked it. Thumbs down if you didn't. Tell me where I'm wrong in the comment section down below. Do not fall for the propaganda and the machinations of the state and how they're going to be trying to activate us into supporting more wars abroad that will only bleed more Americans dry and leave the culture at home completely destroyed, as well as the dollar ever decimated. Stay lovely. Stay great. Peace out.